So we are in a series in the book of James, and so I'm going to invite you to turn to James. We're in chapter 3, which if you have the brown Pew Bible ahead of you, it's page 855. So if you'll turn to James chapter 3, page 855, and then stand when you've found it, and we'll read it together. James 3, we're going to read verses 1 to 12. Not many of you should presume to be teachers, my brothers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. We all stumble in many ways. If anyone is never at fault in what he says, he is perfect, able to keep his whole body in check. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person and sets the whole course of his life on fire, and it is itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, creatures of the sea are being tamed and have been tamed by men, but no man can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in God's image. Out of the same mouth comes praise and cursing. My brothers, it should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? My brothers, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. This is the word of the Lord. You may be seated. So like I said, we're about halfway through a series in the book of James. And this is a letter written by James, the brother of Jesus, to Jews who were scattered throughout the Roman Empire. And I know it's summer, so I know probably most of you haven't been here for all of the sermon series, all the sermons in the series. I don't think I've been here for any of them, so we're in the same boat on that. So let me just quickly kind of summarize for you. The whole book of James basically has one point, and the point is faith matters. That's it, that your faith matters. And by that what I mean is that your faith affects your life. Okay, so like I said, my family just got back from a road trip through BC and Alberta, and when we were in Edmonton, we went to the World Water Park at West Edmonton Mall. How many people have been to the World Water Park? Okay, Caitlin, I thought you weren't going to raise your hand, and I was like, you're from Lethbridge. You have to have gone to the World Water Park. So we were there, and I used to go when I was growing up, but when we went a couple years ago, I noticed that it's surprisingly, it's changed since the 90s. And there's this one slide that they have, and I haven't seen any slide like it before. Usually go to water parks, and they have the same slides. They have the really steep one, and they have the curly one, and they have the one with the rafts. But there's this one slide that I hadn't seen anywhere else, and I still haven't seen anywhere else. And what it does, it starts off with a sheer drop, and then it actually loops. You're in the water slide, and you go upside down in the water slide, and then you go straight down again. I think they call it the death slide or something like that. I can't imagine why. And so this last time when we went, I was going down slides with the boys, so I didn't go on this. But 2 years ago we were there, and I went down the slide because I'm a man, and I'm brave and stuff. So I remember we go. I was climbing up the stairs, and the park is indoors. It's in West Edmonton Mall, so it's really compact. And so most of the slides all come off of the same structure. And so I was climbing up the stairs, and I'm looking for the slides for the signs to get up to the death slide, right? And it was packed. It was really full that day. And so I'm looking over people's heads, trying to find the right stairs. And as I go up, there's less and less people. And eventually, it's just me climbing up the stairs. And I keep going up, and you can see most of the other lineups because the death slide is really tall, right? And all the other slides have really long lineups. Don't worry, there's a point to this story. Don't worry. And there's nobody lining up for the death slide, and all these other slides have so many long lineups. I was like, what? Why does nobody want to ride this slide? And then I get up to the top, and by the Well, first of all, what I didn't realize when I started climbing is you don't just sit in the death slide and go down. No, that would be way too easy. You step into a chamber, and they lock the door behind you. Apparently, too many people tried to leave, and then they count you down, and then the bottom drops off, and you go straight down. So I'm standing in this on the platform, and the lady begins to give me a safety a safety talk. What kind of water slide needs a safety talk? And as she's talking, I look down, and there's a scale. Evidently, there's a very specific weight range that you need to be to go down the slide. If you're too heavy, you can't make it up the loop. If you're too light, you can't make it up the loop. There's a very specific weight range you need to be. And then I look at the loop. It is far bigger than it seemed when I was down at the bottom. And there's a little hatch. There's a walkway that goes out to a hatch. Evidently, it's possible to get stuck there. And they have to build this hatch so that they can walk there and rescue you in case you get stuck. And I started to think, I wonder what it feels like to be suspended upside down on a water slide and stuck there. Anyway, so she finishes her safety demonstration, and suddenly I realize I'm a little bit scared to get into this thing. And she steps aside and opens up the cubicle, and I have a choice to make. I either step in to what certainly seems like, definite doom, or I go back down. And I step in, and the mechanical voice starts counting down 3, 2, and I have a choice to make. I have a choice of where I want to put my faith, right? Do I put my faith in everything that I'm seeing? The fact that nobody wants to go down this slide, the fact that it needs a specific weight range, the fact that I'm actually locked into this cabinet and the floor is going to drop out from under me, the fact that all of those facts seem to tell to me that this slide is going to lead to my death. That's why it's called the death slide. Or I can put my faith in the fact that the lawyers at West Edmonton Mall would not allow me to get in there if it was actually going to kill me. And then the bottom dropped off, and I flew down the slide, and he went up and around. And the point is that I could stand on the platform looking at everything, and I could say, I have faith that they won't let me ride that slide unless it's not actually going to kill me. By the way, spoiler alert, it didn't kill me. Or I could stand there and I could say I have faith in the fact they wouldn't let me ride it if it was going to kill me, but never actually ride it. But that faith is useless. It's a vapor. It doesn't actually accomplish anything, which means it isn't faith at all. Because faith, according to the Bible, faith is always a verb. Remember that old DC Talk song, Love is a Verb? Of course you don't. Cheryl's not here anymore. No one listens to DC Talk. But faith is a verb too. Faith should always lead to action. And this is James's point throughout the letter that he's written, is that faith will always lead to action. If you have faith in something, it will always lead you to step onto the slide. We'll stretch the analogy a little bit. And James actually provides a little table of contents of his book of 3 places where he says that our faith in Christ will lead us to action. So I want you to look with me at James chapter 1, verse 26 to 27. James says, "If anyone considers himself religious and yet does not keep a tight rein on his tongue, he deceives himself, and his religion is worthless." Religion that God our Father accepts is as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. What James is saying is if your faith is actually worth something, if it actually is tangible, if it actually is true, if you actually have faith, it will affect your speaking, it will affect your care for vulnerable people, and it will reflect your purity. Okay? And so in this passage in chapter 3, James is dealing with the first one. How our faith affects what we say, how our faith affects our tongue. I'm not entirely sure what he's been talking about until chapter 3, because that's the first thing on his list, but then again, I wasn't here for the other sermon, so maybe they talked about what they talked about. Anyway, I guess you guys don't feel the need to laugh at my jokes just like my kids don't, so that's all right. Okay, so let's let's look at this passage in James chapter 3. James talks about the power of our words. He talks about the power of our tongue, the use of our tongue, how we use our tongue, and then how to heal our tongue. So James starts this passage with a warning to teachers. Not many of you should presume to be teachers, my brothers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. But his main point, James's main point, is not that people like me need to take great care in what we say. That is one of his points, but it's not his main point, because if it was, he would continue on in that. But he doesn't. Look at the next verse. He says, we all stumble in many ways. If anyone is never at fault in what he says, he is a perfect man, able to keep his whole body in check. What James is saying is that the tongue has power. Our words have power. Okay? So James is saying that teachers need to watch out in what they say, because we all need to watch out in what we say, because words have great power. In fact, if we're able to keep our tongue perfect, our whole body will be perfect. All of us, our whole being will be perfect. But that cuts both ways. So look at verse 6. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the course of his life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. So our tongue has such a power that if it's perfect, it can purify us entirely. And if it's evil, it can corrupt us entirely. And what's interesting is that James divides our words into two categories. But these two categories aren't categories we usually use, like true words and false words, or even righteous words and unrighteous words. They aren't moral words and immoral words. The two categories that James gives us, well, let's look at verse 10. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. Those are the two categories of words that James develops, praise and cursing. Again, we see that these are, they're not adjectives, they're not nouns, they're verbs. So we have words that praise and words that curse. So James is saying that our words are active. They accomplish something. They don't just describe something. They actually have an action. They have an effect. They have the power to act upon someone. In fact, words affect both those who hear them, the hearers of the words, but also the speakers. They affect and they shape both the hearer and the speaker. So they affect the hearer. James talks about curses. What's a curse? We're a smaller group today, so let's be a little bit interactive. This is a non-rhetorical question. What is a curse? We're also early, so I don't mind waiting for a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you curse, you're speaking something bad about somebody, but it affects them, doesn't it? It's not just wishing them evil. It's actually giving them evil, isn't it? Do you think I'm overstating? Let's think about this a little bit. Ask any counselor. Actually, just think of your own family or in your own head. Words, some of them might have been spoken decades ago to you, but words echo in your head. They echo around and they shape you. And we build these soundtracks in our minds of things that we've said that have embarrassed us and things that others have said about us. And usually they're negative. Studies show that you need, especially in children, you need 10 positive comments to counteract one negative one. And so we have this soundtrack in our minds that repeats these negative things. That's why so many of us have such a difficulty in ever being quiet, especially in our culture where there's so much sound, there's so many ways to distract you. I know that I don't like silence because then I hear the soundtrack of those words echoing in my head and they affect me. Okay, how many girls and young women have clung onto words that a peer or a bully or an ex-boyfriend said that when they called them fat? How many look in a mirror and see... How many look in a mirror and see that even if it isn't objectively true, that image in the mirror is fat? And so they diet, or they fast, or they exercise, and no matter how much weight that they lose, that figure in the mirror is still fat because the words echoing in their mind keep telling them. And they believe that above what they can see. How many of us spend our whole lifetimes trying to make our parents, and especially with guys, it's especially their fathers, trying to make our parents proud of us? Because something we remember our dad saying to us when we were growing up, and we constantly think that they're disappointed in us. We're constantly living to try and prove our parents that we're somebody. Or how many teens or young adults wrestle with suicide because they think more about what a bully or someone has said to them and they constantly repeat that until it becomes true, whether it is true or isn't. And these are just the extreme cases. Psychologists have studied this repeatedly. I found a number of studies where people were put into fMRIs, which can measure your brain activity, and then they expose them to different words. And the results are amazing. Even simple negative words create this sudden release of dozens of stress-producing hormones and neurotransmitters. I want you to listen to just one article that I found. It says, in fact, just seeing a list of negative words for a few seconds will make a highly anxious or depressed person feel worse. And the more you ruminate on them, the more you can actually damage the key structures that regulate memory. So not just in the moment, but permanent damage. For these structures that regulate memory, feelings, and emotions, you'll disrupt your sleep, your appetite, and your ability to experience long-term happiness and satisfaction. Negative thinking is also self-perpetuating, and the more you engage in negative dialogue at home or at work, the more difficult it becomes to stop. But negative words spoken with anger do even more damage. They send alarm messages through the brain, interfering with the decision-making centers in the frontal lobe, and this increases a person's propensity to act irrationally. Fear-provoking words like poverty, illness, and death also stimulate the brain in negative ways. And even if these fearful thoughts are not real, other parts of your brain, like the thalamus and the amygdala, react to negative fantasies as though they were actual threats occurring in the outside world. Okay, so it's clear across the board in scientific and psychological studies that words affect us, not just in the moment, but permanently, and they alter how we remember things, they alter our memory, they alter our emotions, they alter how we perceive things. It's so much so that we treat imaginary things, false things, as real in our negative reactions to them. But this is nothing new. The Bible said the same thing well before modern psychology ever caught up to it. Even before James, Proverbs talks about the power of words. Proverbs 12 says that reckless words penetrate. So according to the Bible, you know the old nursery rhyme, sticks and stones? According to the Bible, it says, sticks and stones can only break my bones, but words, they can penetrate into my soul and pollute it forever. Sticks and stones can only break my bones, but words can destroy my soul. And that's James' point. So we know that words affect the hearer, but James' main point is that what you say, your words, they tell something about you, and they actually do something to you. So it's one thing to affect the hearer, but what about the speaker? James says our words say something about us, and they actually change us. So what do our words say about us? Our words reveal our heart. Look at verse 12 again. My brothers, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. Our words simply reveal what is actually inside of us. So how do you know that a vine is a grapevine? It produces grapes. How do you know that a fig tree is a fig tree? It produces figs. How do you know that a Macintosh apple tree is a Macintosh tree? It produces Macintosh apples. How do you know that a tree is a pine tree? It produces pineapples, right? Okay, maybe not the last one. Oh, that's a whole paragraph just to set up that joke. But our words reveal who we are, right? Our words reveal what's inside of us. Out of the outflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Centuries before modern psychology, James was telling us this very same thing. And the Bible is telling us something that all therapists and all counselors know, that no matter what the counselor's point of view is, no matter what school that they belong to or what party they're in, it's that if you get people talking and you get them to be unguarded, then they'll start to reveal something about themselves. You get a person talking in that unguarded way and in an honest way, and then suddenly they'll say, "Whoa, did I just say that? Yeah, I guess I actually believe that," because our words just reveal what's inside of us. But it's not just that our tongues, that our words reveal our heart. They're actually active and they're actually shaping our heart. So they reveal our heart, but then they go further and they shape our heart. Look at the other images that James uses. Look at verse 3. When we put bits into the mouths of horses, we make them obey us and we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are large and driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder where the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. So James says our tongue reveals what's inside, but it also steers us. You know, after the Holocaust, C.S. Lewis said that the Nazis killed the Jews because they hated them. But then they hated the Jews because they killed them. And what Lewis was getting at was he was saying that it was this hatred that caused them to murder in the first place, but then that murder and that treating this people group like that deepened and pushed down the hate deeper and deeper into their psychology, into their psyche. And James is saying the same thing with our words, is that unfiltered, our words are just they're a reflection of what our heart says, what's in our heart. But as we verbalize them and as we let our words just flow, it pushes those thoughts deeper and deeper into us, and it shapes us and it shapes our heart. So just like a rudder steers a ship, our tongue will steer us. It directs our whole body, it directs our whole life. And if we're not careful, the tongue is a spark that sets our whole body aflame. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person and sets the whole course of his life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. James is saying that our tongue is a taste of hell. So in the Bible, hell is a place where God restricts his presence, where he restricts his truth. And so that lies go around and they bounce and they echo around, and there's nothing there to correct them. And then the effect of all these lies bouncing around and growing for all of eternity is separation and pain. Lies about others drive us further away from others. Lies about ourselves deepen our self-hatred. Lies about God separate us further and further away from God. And they grow and they grow and they mask God's beauty and his majesty and his goodness for eternity, to the point that we are consumed, that we are totally set aflame. So what James is saying is that process isn't something that just starts when we die, when someone dies and goes to hell. That process starts now. And unless our tongue is bridled, it will continue for all eternity to drive us further and further away from others and further away from God and further into darkness, and we will be consumed by that. That's exactly what James is saying, that our words reflect what's in our hearts, but as we vocalize it, as we propagate it, as we clothe it in speech, it grows, and those words begin to not only reflect our heart, but to actually actively shape our heart. And we know this is true because it happens all the time. Something happens, and two people have wildly different views on it, and they tell their own stories. They shape it how they see it, and then they quickly begin to believe their view as the truth of what actually happened. Their words shape their memories, and they shape their emotions, and they shape their view of others. If we're angry or we're cynical, and we speak out in anger or in cynicism, it makes us more angry and more cynical. And it shapes our heart and it drives our heart in the direction that our tongue is going. So our speech and our words have great power. It has the power to reveal what's inside of us, but also to shape our hearts. So it's the power of our words, but how do we wield that power? How do we use our tongue? What's James going after? It's clear that our words can be positive. Remember verse 2 where he's saying that if we're perfect, if our tongue is perfect, we'll be perfect. But predominantly what James provides here is a warning against the negative use of our words. So again, interactive, non-rhetorical question. How are some ways that we sin with our words? What are types of sins that we do with our words? Gossip. What is gossip? Gossip, it doesn't have to be untrue. It's often untrue, but it's usually a particular slant of looking at something. So we gossip. What else do we do? Slander. What was else? Criticize. Yeah, we tear other people down. There's just we lie. We omit truth. We speak in anger. All of these things, and James compiles them down to just two types. Like I said, he focuses on the two aspects of our speaking. He calls them boasting, if you look in verse 5, and cursing, if you look in verses 9 and 10. Boasting and cursing. Now, in these two categories, does James really have everything that all the different ways that we sin with our mouths? I think so, actually, because what's boasting? Boasting is building ourselves up. Now, very few of us, we're all way too mature to actually boast. So what we usually do is we boast by retelling a story in a way that benefits us a little bit. So let's say you were telling a story about a water slide and you made the main point that you're brave and you can go down the water slide, right? So that's boasting. Or there's cursing. Cursing is tearing someone else down, okay? So how does lying fit into this? Well, why do we lie? We either lie to cover up something, which is a way of boasting. It's retelling history in a way that isn't true in order to make yourself look better. Or we lie about someone else to tear them down. So lying fits into these two categories of boasting, building ourselves up, or cursing, tearing other people down. And I think that this is something that we need to fight against, both inside and outside of the church. I think that both religious people and irreligious people see that these two things are wrong. Whether or not we actually do them is one thing. That's a different thing. But we see them as wrong. We shouldn't boast, and we shouldn't cut other people down. We shouldn't try and make ourselves look better, and we also shouldn't try and cut someone else down. So I think that on this point, both religious people and secular people have the same moral code. Be honest, don't brag, don't cut others down. We want to use our words correctly, but we have two different ways of dealing with them, two different ways of achieving this moral code that we want to follow. The first way is the secular way. Okay, it's too difficult to talk about all the different ways we use our tongue negatively, so let's just talk about lying. What's the secular way to be truthful? The secular way to be truthful is to say, don't lie. You're better than those liars. We raised you to be an upright person. Don't lie. Or you say, don't lie because you might get caught. Look at Enron. They were the smartest guys in the room, and they still got caught, and look what it cost them. Don't lie because eventually you'll get caught. But the problem with that is it builds our honesty on pride, you're better than them, or on fear, you'll get caught. But why do we lie in the first place? Pride and fear. So this secular way of bringing honesty builds honesty on the very things that cause dishonesty, pride and fear. And then there's the religious way of building honesty. Religious people, they'll look to a passage like this in James, and they'll see God hates lying. Lying is going to destroy you. It's going to get you sent to hell. So you can't lie. Don't lie, because God hates lying. And religious people say, don't curse others. Don't tear other people down. Bless them instead. But the problem with that isn't exactly what James is saying. James is kind of speaking about that religious way of telling the truth too, because James isn't saying get in the ring and fight harder and really fight to be honest, really fight to control your tongue. In the Pew Bible, the subtitle, which by the way is not inspired scripture, says that this passage is about taming the tongue. No, it isn't. Because it says in verse 7, all kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by man, but Christians can tame the tongue. No, it says, but no man can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. This passage is about how you cannot tame the tongue. So what do we need to do? James is telling us that we can't tame the tongue. He's saying that our tongues need to be healed. And he already told us that our tongues reveal what's in our hearts, so he's saying that our hearts need to be healed. But how do we do that? How do we heal our tongue? Religious people say that we need to stop cursing people and bless them instead, but that isn't what James is saying here. James says way more. He doesn't pit cursing someone with blessing someone. Look at verse 9. With our tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men. He pits cursing people with praising God, not cursing people with blessing people. Okay? He pits up the opposite of cursing someone is not blessing them. The opposite of cursing someone is praising God. Why does he do that? Well, remember, James is going against two misuses of our tongue: boasting, lifting ourselves up, and cursing, cutting other people down. In both of those, we're trying to win a judgment. Okay, we're building a scale, and we're either lifting ourselves up to get higher, or we're cutting someone else down to get higher. In both of them, we're trying to win a court battle. We're trying to be justified. We're trying to win approval in something. And when we're trying to meet someone's standards. Now, this might be subconscious. Usually it is. Usually we're not actively in our minds thinking about this. It's something subconscious. But that's still why we cut people down, is trying to bring them down to lift ourselves up. And as we mature, we get more subtle in it. But it's still the same thing. And what James is telling us is we don't have to engage in that courtroom battle. We don't have to be in the courtroom making our defense. So while I was researching this sermon, I came across some discipleship material that has what they call a tongue assignment. And what they say is, if you want to know if you really believe the gospel, do this tongue assignment. And what the tongue assignment is they say, for 1 week, write these 6 things down and keep it with you. Can we have that slide? Don't complain or grumble. Do not boast about anything at all. Don't gossip or repeat bad information about someone else. Don't run somebody down, even a little bit. Don't defend yourself or excuse yourself, no matter what. But do always affirm other people. And it isn't until we start to look at this, like you read it on the screen, you're like, oh, yeah, sure, a week, I can do that. Write it down. Follow it for a week. You'll realize how difficult it is to control your tongue. No wonder that James says that anyone who can control their tongue will be perfect. But all 6 of these things boil down to this: you're always boasting or cursing. Make sure I don't get in that picture, Les. You're always trying to cut someone else down, or you're always trying to build yourself up. You're always, making excuses for yourself that you don't give for other people. You're always putting yourself in a good light. But here's the reason, is that we feel the need to do that is because we're constantly going back to this courtroom. We keep trying to justify ourselves to change other people's perception of us. But the gospel says that we don't need to be in the courtroom. We don't need to make our defense. We don't need to defend ourselves. There's no more need for a defense because Jesus was already prosecuted on our behalf. Jesus was condemned, and so now we're accepted. And this is why, to James, the opposite of cursing someone is not blessing someone, although that will happen. The opposite of cursing someone is praising God. Because if we praise God, we focus on what he has done for us, and we don't feel that same need, that deep driving need to defend ourselves. We won't feel that need to cut other people down. We won't need to retell history in a way that benefits us. So we'll bless them, but we'll do a lot more than that. Let's end where we started, at the top of the slide of death. When someone blames us for something or they lash out at us, we want to strike back. And again, if we're mature, we do this subtly in a way that we can convince ourselves we're not actually doing it. But we want to strike back, and we want to protect people's perception of us. When we fail, we want to cover it up. when we want to remain silent instead of affirming someone in case we get this picture that they're better than us. And it's like we're all standing on the platform looking down at the slide and we're saying, you know what, to go down that slide seems dangerous. It seems like everybody's going to have a poor perception of me, and so I better get out. I better take the easy way out. But if we have faith in the Creator, if we have faith in the Justifier, we're going to be able to take that dangerous road of praising other people, of blessing other people, not just as an end to itself, but because we're praising God. We can choose to have faith in our false perception, or we can choose to have faith in the gospel. Either way, we need to trust God. We need to trust His declaration of our acceptance. We don't try and make our acceptance of ourselves with our words. We're going to sing a song later in the service, and this is how it starts. In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. And when we sing that, what we're confessing is that we're saying, regardless of what anyone is saying about me, regardless of how badly I messed up and I feel the need to protect myself from it, that my hope is found in Christ alone, who is perfect and who is solid. And He's my light, He's my strength, and He's my song. And I can stand on His solid ground. I don't need to build my own false platform of lies, of anger, of deceit, of cynicism, of shading the truth, because I can stand on what He says about me. And that is the only way that we're going to be able to heal our hearts. And when we heal our hearts, heal our tongue. Let's pray.